Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel where I talk about the NWSL, women's soccer, and just soccer. Only soccer. Anyway, this actually came out earlier today, but I'm kind of getting around to filming this tonight because I woke up this morning with a splitting headache, but now I'm okay. So that being said, let's get right into this. The fall training camp call-ups for the U.S. Women's National Team have been posted. The U.S. Women's National Team will be taking on Paraguay in 2 friendlies. The first one will be on September 16th. The second game will be September 21st. I may or may not have forgotten about the September 16th game next week, but I made a note in my calendar to watch it, and I'll be doing a game review of both of those games. Okay, so let's get into the roster. Also, before I begin, some of the pictures that I used are from the U.S. Women's National Team Twitter account, so if you want to download those pictures or get those pictures, you can check out the Twitter account for the U.S. Women's National Team and get them there. Alright, so goalkeepers. Adriana Addy-French and Jane Campbell. Alyssa Nair is still out with an injury, but I heard she and Sam Mewis may still go to the camp for rehabilitation purposes. As for Addy-French and Jane Campbell, both are really good goalkeepers. I would like to see Jane Campbell start a game and go the full 90 in one of those national games. I know Jane and Addie are great goalkeepers, but honestly, I would have liked to see Ashlyn Harris return to the national team. Yes, I know there are a lot of people who are tired of hearing about Ashlyn Harris, but it's surprising that she didn't get the call-up. 469 career saves and counting, NWSL all-time saves leader. And she's also made some really big saves, too, for Orlando Pride. Some of them being penalties. Almost every week she wins the Save of the Week on Twitter, even though I've voted for Sarah Bukhari in the past because she had some great saves, but still, Ashlyn Harris would almost always come out on top. Anyway, Addie and Jane are great goalkeepers, but I don't know, it's just surprising to me that Harris wasn't called up. I would have thought with how well she's been doing in the NWSL, she would have been called up as well. Alright, so moving on to defenders. Abby Dalkemper, Tierna Davidson, Crystal Dunn, Casey Kruger, Kelly O'Hara, Becky Sauerbrunn, and Emily Sonnet. So the defenders are fine. I like the defenders. If you asked me to pick a roster for these friendlies, I probably would have picked these defenders. For fun, leading up to the Olympics, I came up with a roster of players who I would take to the Olympics, and it was kind of funny that I picked out the same defenders that Vlatko ended up taking to the Olympics. So, yeah, I would have picked these defenders. I would have picked these defenders as well, but with one difference. I would have thrown Alana Cook. I would have added Alana Cook, but maybe in the future she'll get picked for the national team. So as I said, defenders are good. I would like to see Emily Sonnet and Casey Kruger get more playtime with the national team, especially Emily Sonnet. I feel like Emily Sonnet didn't get much playtime in the Olympics, so I would love to see her. Abby Dalkemper, Tierna Davidson, Crystal Dunn, along with Kelly O'Hara and Becky Sauerbrunn, always strong and reliable defenders. So I'm good with the defenders. Next up, midfielders. Lindsay Horan, Rose Lavelle, Katarina Macario, Christy Mewis, and finally, Andy Sullivan. If you guys haven't seen my previous videos I did leading up to the Olympics, I kept saying that I wanted 2 certain players on the Olympic roster. One was Margaret Midge Pierce, and the second was Andy Sullivan. And finally, my request for Andy Sullivan has been accepted, while my request for Margaret or Midge Pierce has been denied, possibly due to her recovering from injuries. Anyway, going back to the midfielders, I like this selection for the midfield. If you're wondering where Julie Ertz and Sam Mewis are, both are recovering from injuries, but Sam may be at the camp just for rehabilitation, much like with Alyssa Nair. There was this thing also with Sam Mewis about her playing in the Olympics while having sustained an injury, which was really dangerous. Anyway, with Sam and Julie both out, the midfield is going to be needing to step up. I'm interested to see how Macario, Christie, and Sullivan do in a game together. I would also like to see Christie Mewis get more playtime. She was another player who I thought didn't get much playtime in the Olympics. Also, her sister Sam was injured. I'm surprised, I'm surprised Sam didn't come out. Well, Sam did get substituted out, but I feel like if Sam was injured, it would just make sense to play Christie Mewis, who wasn't injured. Anyway, as for Andi Sullivan, she's been doing well this season in the NWSL, so I'm looking forward to seeing her on the national team again. Hopefully she will get to start as well and go, well, maybe not go the full 90, but go for a long time. As for Macario, I don't think we got to see her really play in the games leading up to the Olympics. I'm looking forward to see how she does this time around. Lindsay Horan and Rose Lavelle, two good midfielders, especially Lindsay Horan. It's going to be interesting to see how this midfield works, especially without Julie Ertz and Sam Mewis. They may need some time to adjust, but yeah, this is also I think this is a good selection for the midfield. And finally for forwards, Tobin Heath, Carly Lloyd, Alex Morgan, Mallory Pugh, Sophia Smith, and Lynn Williams. If you're wondering where Megan Rapinoe and Kristen Press are, Pino is out due to an injury, and Kristen Press didn't want to be called up for this camp and these friendlies. She wanted to take a mental health break, which I think is good. I'm glad Kristen is taking time for herself and taking a break. Going back to the other forwards, I'm happy to see Tobin Heath and Alex Morgan. They're always welcome. And I'm hoping Carly Lloyd can get a few more goals before retiring. So if you don't know, Carly Lloyd is going to be retiring from international soccer after the Paraguay and South Korea friendlies and is retiring from club soccer after this NWSL season. So it's great that Carly gets to play in these friendlies before she retires from international soccer. As for Mallory Pugh, Sophia Smith, and Lynn Williams, yeah, also not a bad selection. Happy to see Mal return. She's been doing well. Lynn Williams really impressed me in the Olympic game against the Netherlands with getting an assist to Sam Mewis, who scored, and getting a goal, and Lynn also getting a goal soon afterwards. So yeah, I would like to see Lynn get more playtime. So in the midfield and attack, there seems to be a good mix of young and veteran players, which is what I think the U.S. women's national team needs. I'm not the type of person that thinks the whole team needs to be scrapped and replaced. I think it's good to have a mix of both. So personally, the roster for this camp and these friendlies look good. Yes, there are players who I would have liked to see get called up, like Ashlyn Harris, Alana Cook. And I didn't mention her earlier, but I would like to see Bethany Balser eventually get a call up to the national team. Same with Midge Pierce after she recovers from an injury. Alright, so this fall camp, these upcoming friendlies, is going to be a great time to work with and develop some of these younger players and get them adjusted or readjusted to the national team. It's also going to give these young players more experience and playtime, which is what they need, especially going forward to the 2023 World Cup. Yeah, I know it's 2 years away, but here's the thing. The other national teams, especially in Europe, are developing their teams in preparation for the 2022 Euros. In fact, they've been preparing since the start of this year. As for the US, we kind of need to catch up. So yeah, it wouldn't hurt to have the US start developing and working with some of these young or new players. As I said, I think with like teams in Europe preparing for the Euros, they're going to be like somewhat ahead of us, somewhat ahead of the US. So the US, this is a good time for the US to work on developing these players, work on developing new players, at like seeing who fits in, seeing who doesn't, and just, yeah, just working on preparing for the 2023 World Cup. Even though it's 2 years away, it's still a good time to prepare. So yeah, I'm looking forward to these friendlies, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this team does midfield and attack wise. That being said, that is all I have for you guys today or tonight, and I'll see you all in the next one. Later.